we are very much talking about Men's Mental Health Month. You've asked for it, and of course, I am here to go serving it up. And I'm joined with Keith Ham, who is over at the Integrated Family Services, to go sharing his wisdom on the topic. So where should we begin with a topic like this? So many men have been reaching out and saying, you know, nobody's talking about Men's Mental Health Month, and we're almost wrapping it up, but...
Well, that's right. And the thing about that is we do have different emphasis months, and this one being men's mental health. But unfortunately, men don't really want to talk about that too much. And so one of the problems is that men are not talking among themselves about how their mental health is.
Well, so what type of mental topics, or I don't want to necessarily say issues, but are men finding that they're prone to, or what are you coming across?
Well, what we come across, first of all, is that the #1 mental health diagnosis in America today is anxiety. Now, about 5 or 6 years ago, it was depression, but it's flipped. And so what's happened in the past 5 or 6 years? COVID. Because COVID took an emotional toll on all of us. Sometimes people try to say, oh, you know, it didn't really affect me that much. And I say, well, do you remember then on March 17th, I think, when we all had to wear hazmat suits to go to the grocery store, or we had family members who passed away, couldn't even have funerals, and then all of a sudden it did. So anxiety is the #1 for men and women.
And you have a very interesting stat in terms of that. Why don't you tell our viewers about that?
Okay, so I do a lot of seminars, and particularly when I'm doing a seminar for men and women together, I post a statistic. And it goes like this: 60%, when it comes to anxiety, 60% of women are more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety disorder. And so all the men in the room are thinking, oh yes, women have anxiety disorder, but I don't. And then I'm quick to point out the fallacy of that.
Women are verbal about their emotions, and we complain very much. So it's kind of a very deceitful statistics.
It is.
Because how do you necessarily go finding the stat on a group that doesn't necessarily talk about their emotions?
Exactly. And so the key is women are 60% more likely to be diagnosed. Because as a general rule, women are much more receptive to seeking treatment than men are.
Yeah.
I think another key thing about that statistic, well, the statistic that approximately 18 to 20% of Americans have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. But again, the word is diagnosed. So if 18 to 20% have been diagnosed, what is the percentage of folks who haven't? Right?
Yes.
It's got to be much, much higher, because even with men and women, they're less likely to seek treatment for mental health than they are their physical health.
So how do we go breaking the stigma, especially in a time where we hear so much about, you know, toxic masculinity and all these negative connotations in terms of men? How do we break the stigma so they know if you're feeling something and you need help, like, don't feel like a failure, do what you need to do to make yourself a better version?
Right, and one of the ways that I believe the stigma has to be broken is that men need to begin talking about this. Men need to talk with other men, their friends, their co-workers, because oftentimes we may be experiencing a mental health issue. For example, depression is the #2 diagnosis in America. And we might be depressed, but it's very difficult for us to recognize that in ourselves. It's kind of the forest for the trees thing. And so we need someone else to say, hey man, what's going on with you? You know, I've asked you to play golf 3 times, but you're not going. You've lost interest in things that once brought you interest, which is a symptom of depression.
And then I know that you just wanted to mention the services that your facility offers really quick.
Okay. We have Integrated Family Services has mobile crisis, which is 24/7, 365. Someone can call that number and receive help immediately with mental health issues or substance abuse issues. And we also have a crisis chat line, but all they have to do is go to our website, integratedfamilyservices.net.
And we'll put that over at WITN.com. And of course, we want you to go breaking the stigma. If you need help, please get it. And of course, we have more ENC at 3 on the way right after the break.